We all remember the glamour and magic of old Hollywood. But behind the silver screen, the Golden Age hid secrets that many hoped would never come to light. Today, we revisit long-forgotten scandals, stories buried by studios, silenced by money, and lost to time until now.
And left the world a legacy of film classics. This is one of them.
1. Joan Crawford's hidden past. Before Joan Crawford became one of Hollywood's biggest stars, she had a secret the studio would spend years trying to cover up. According to old Hollywood lore, Crawford appeared in an adult short film called Velvet Lips when she was just a teenager. Once she signed with MGM and rose to fame, the studio panicked. They couldn't risk one of their top stars being tied to something so damaging. That's when MGM's notorious fixer, Eddie Mannix, stepped in. Some say he worked with the mob to track down the film and the people trying to sell it for $100,000. The story goes they were given a choice: accept $25,000 for the negatives, or face the consequences. In another version, Mannix simply paid the full amount to make the problem disappear. Years later, when Crawford left MGM in 1943, she paid the studio $50,000. An unusual move. Many believe this was her way of reimbursing them for destroying the film and protecting her reputation forever. 2. Howard Hughes and the deadly filming of Hell's Angels. Howard Hughes's movie, Hell's Angels, is famous for its incredible flying scenes. But the story behind the film is both thrilling and tragic. The production took 3 years and cost an astonishing $4 million, an enormous sum at the time. Hughes was determined to capture the most realistic aerial footage ever seen in Hollywood. To achieve this, he pushed his pilots to perform dangerous stunts high in the sky. Tragically, 3 stunt pilots and 1 mechanic lost their lives during filming. Even Hughes himself narrowly escaped death when he stepped in to fly a plane during a risky stunt. The breathtaking flying scenes remain legendary, but they came at a heartbreaking price. 3. The mysterious death of Jean Harlow's husband. In 1932, Hollywood was stunned by the sudden death of Jean Harlow's husband, MGM producer Paul Byrne, just 2 months after their wedding. Byrne was found dead in their home, apparently by suicide. His body was discovered unclothed, with a gun in his hand and a strange note nearby. Police quickly assumed it was a suicide, but the letter left more questions than answers, and Harlow, only 21 at the time, refused to say much, only that she had been at her mother's house that night. MGM wasted no time stepping in. Studio bosses Irving Thalberg and Louis B. Mayer personally rushed to the scene, determined to protect their rising star. But was there more to the story? Years later, new research raised doubts. Paul Byrne had once been in a long relationship with a troubled woman named Dorothy Millette. Though they never officially married, she was considered his common-law wife. After slipping into a long coma, doctors thought she might never recover. But she eventually did, and reconnected with Byrne just as he was starting his life with Harlow. On the night of his death, Byrne had apparently arranged to meet Millette. He sent Harlow away, some say by starting an argument. That same night, Byrne died. Just days later, Millette's body was found in the Sacramento River. To this day, some believe it wasn't at all, but a tragic end to a love triangle the studio worked hard to erase from history. 4. Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich. Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich were 2 of the most iconic women of Hollywood's golden age. Just 4 years apart in age, both came from Europe, Garbo from Sweden, Dietrich from Germany. and rose to fame in the 1920s and 30s. But oddly, throughout their long careers, they always insisted they had never met. But was that really true? In 1925, a 19-year-old Garbo appeared in the German silent film The Joyless Street. Marlene Dietrich, then 23, was also rumored to have appeared in the film. Yet, she denied it for the rest of her life. And since no complete version of the movie survives, the truth remained buried for decades. That is, until author and film historian Diana McClellan began studying the surviving footage. Her goal was simply to analyze Garbo's early performance. But what she found changed everything. Using rare photographs for comparison, McClellan became convinced that Dietrich did, in fact, appear in several scenes of the film. Why deny it? McClellan believed the answer was personal. According to her research, during the filming of The Joyless Street, the two young actresses had a brief and passionate relationship. Garbo, still new to the industry, was said to have fallen deeply for the confident Dietrich. But when the affair ended, it left both women hurt and seemingly determined to erase the connection from public record. In private, Dietrich reportedly made dismissive remarks about Garbo, calling her a Scandinavian child and criticizing her appearance. Whatever truly happened between them, the story of Garbo and Dietrich remains one of old Hollywood's most fascinating unsolved mysteries. 5. The Death of Superman. In 1959, television audiences were shocked when George Reeves, beloved star of The Adventures of Superman, was found dead in his Los Angeles home from a gunshot wound. He was just 45 years old. Authorities quickly ruled it a... But from the very beginning, not everyone was convinced. Reeves had been romantically involved with Toni Mannix, the wife of Eddie Mannix, a powerful MGM executive and one of Hollywood's most feared fixers. Their relationship had ended just months before his death, and Reeves was reportedly planning to marry another woman. Some wondered if jealousy or revenge played a role in what happened that night. Theories of foul play swirled for decades. Years later, an aging and ill Toni Mannix was said to have made a confession to a priest, admitting that her husband Eddie had George Reeves killed. Still, no charges were ever filed, and many historians believe the truth is far less sinister. That Reeves, facing a stalled career and personal struggles, took his own life. But in Hollywood, the line between fact and legend is often blurry, and the death of Superman remains one of its greatest unsolved mysteries. 6. Hollywood controlled women's bodies. During Hollywood's golden age, studios didn't just manage their stars' careers, they controlled their personal lives too. For many actresses, this meant sacrificing their most private choices to preserve an image crafted by studio executives. Romance was allowed, but only if it sold tickets. Marriage was discouraged. And pregnancy? That was strictly forbidden for leading ladies. When Jean Harlow became pregnant during her relationship with actor William Powell, the studio quickly intervened. She was quietly checked into a hospital under a false name to get some rest. But behind the scenes, the truth was far more tragic. Harlow wasn't alone. Bette Davis, Joan Crawford, Judy Garland, Lana Turner, Dorothy Dandridge, Jeanette MacDonald, and Tallulah Bankhead were all believed to have undergone abortions orchestrated by their studios, sometimes with little or no say in the matter. According to biographer Lee Israel, Tallulah Bankhead got abortions like other women got permanent waves. And when the wholesome, angel-voiced Jeanette MacDonald found herself pregnant in 1935, MGM boss Louis B. Mayer reportedly ordered his publicity chief to get rid of the problem. MacDonald was soon admitted to a hospital under the excuse of an ear infection. These stories are painful reminders of how tightly Hollywood once held the reins, and how many women paid a personal price for fame. 7. Walt Disney and the Nazi filmmaker. Walt Disney is remembered as a creative genius who built an empire of dreams. But there's one little-known moment in his past that still raises eyebrows today. In 1938, just after Kristallnacht, when Nazi forces destroyed thousands of Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues, a German filmmaker named Leni Riefenstahl arrived in Hollywood. She was famous for directing Triumph of the Will, a chilling propaganda film that glorified Hitler and the Nazi regime. At that time, many in Hollywood wanted nothing to do with her. Anti-Nazi films were already in production, and Riefenstahl's reputation had preceded her. But one studio head did meet with her: Walt Disney. He gave Riefenstahl a personal tour of the Disney lot, showed her early concept art for Fantasia, and even arranged a private screening of her new film, Olympia, a documentary on the 1936 Berlin Olympics. To this day, historians debate what this meeting really meant. Was it a simple act of politeness, a business move, or something more troubling? What's clear is that this moment remains a controversial footnote in the life of one of America's most iconic storytellers. 8. The fall of Spade Culie. Spade Culie was once hailed as the king of Western swing. With hit records, movie deals, and even his own TV show, he seemed to have it all. But behind the scenes, his life was unraveling, and it ended in one of Hollywood's darkest scandals. By the late 1950s, Culie's success had started to fade. He became increasingly paranoid, angry, and unstable, burning through his fortune and lashing out at those closest to him. In 1961, his worst fears turned deadly. Believing his wife, Ella May, was unfaithful, Culie flew into a rage. In a horrifying act of violence, he beat her for hours, while their teenage daughter was forced to watch. Ella May didn't survive. The trial that followed became a national sensation. Fans stood in line for hours just to get a seat in the courtroom. In the end, Culie was found guilty of murder and sent to prison. But the story didn't end there. Several of Culie's celebrity friends petitioned then-Governor Ronald Reagan to grant him a pardon. Reagan agreed in 1969, but just before Culie could be told the news, he suffered a fatal heart attack during a prison performance. A tragic end to a once-celebrated star, and a haunting reminder that fame offers no protection from the consequences of violence. 9. Lana Turner and the scandal that shocked Hollywood. Lana Turner was one of the great screen sirens of classic Hollywood. Glamorous, elegant, and unforgettable. But in 1958, her real life turned into something straight out of a film noir. That year, Turner's boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, a man with deep ties to the mob, was found dead in her Beverly Hills home. He had been stabbed with a kitchen knife. To the shock of the nation, it was Turner's 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, who confessed to the killing. She claimed she had acted in defense of her mother during a violent argument. Cheryl said she feared for her mother's life and acted on instinct. The case made headlines across America. At the inquest, even infamous mobster Mickey Cohen was called to testify. Lana herself took the stand in tears, recounting the terrifying night. In the end, the jury ruled the killing a justifiable act of self-defense. Still, whispers followed Turner for the rest of her life. Some claimed Cheryl was covering for her mother. Others believed there was more to the story than anyone would ever admit. Despite the tragedy, Lana Turner continued her career, but the shadows of that night never fully left her. 10. Judy Garland's struggles behind the scenes at MGM. Judy Garland is remembered as one of Hollywood's brightest stars, beloved for her incredible talent and unforgettable voice. But behind the spotlight, Her life at MGM was filled with harsh challenges. Judy joined the studio when she was just 13 years old. Almost immediately, she faced cruel pressure about her appearance. Studio executives, including Louis B. Mayer himself, constantly criticized her weight. By age 14, she was cruelly called a fat little pig with pigtails. At 16, an MGM executive told her she looked like a monster. By 18, the pressure grew worse. Mayer forced Judy onto a brutal regimen: black coffee, chicken soup, 80 cigarettes a day, and diet pills every 4 hours, all to keep her thin. Sadly, these demands took a heavy toll. Judy struggled with an eating disorder and addiction for much of her life. Her story reminds us how Hollywood's glittering surface often hides deep personal pain. Hollywood's golden age gave us legends, but behind every legend, there's a truth often left untold. If you found this journey into the forgotten past intriguing, I'd love for you to subscribe and share it with a fellow old movie fan. There are many more stories to uncover, and together we'll bring them back into the light.